Hi, everybody. My name is Christa of Practical Astros. I'm here with my Asteri Sofia Kairos sister, Sonia of Celestia Astrology. Hi, Sonia.
Hello. It's good to be back.
Yeah, we've missed you. It was Shauna for all of October, and I'm the captain of the ship for November. So it's nice to kind of have your voice for the recording. We're in the third week of November, November 19th to 25th. So we'll be talking about the aspects and the transits that are happening this week. So thanks for joining again.
Thank you. It's great to be invited. It's great to be back as a more of a guest.
Yeah. So for week 3, we're going to look at Mercury opposite Uranus. We'd already talked about this in last week's recording, but because it's happening on Wednesday, we record the weeks from one Mercury day to the next Mercury day. And so it's a Wednesday to Wednesday forecast. And since this Mercury opposite Uranus aspect happened on Wednesday, we already talked about it last week, but we're going to talk about it again because that's how we start this week, this Mercurial week. We'll also talk about the Mercury Cazimi with the new moon in Scorpio. The sun will also oppose Uranus as it trines Saturn, and then immediately the sun will go into Sagittarius. Then that retrograde Mercury that Cazimi'd the sun will then trine a retrograde Pisces Saturn, and then Mercury will conjoin Venus. So it is definitely a Mercurial week as we start this third week of November. And to start us off, we're going to talk about the Big Bang aspect of Mercury opposite Uranus. What's your take on this? Since I already talked about it for last week, I'll chime in, but I want to hear your hot take with Mercury opposite Uranus.
Yeah, because we've got Mercury. He's just left Sagittarius, hasn't he?
Yep. So 29 degree, 31 minute Scorpio.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's retrograded back from Sagittarius, and it's getting close to the sun. As soon as it enters, retrogrades back into Scorpio. The moment it retrogrades back into Scorpio, it's going to be opposing Uranus. The direct aspect is going to happen when it hits that 29 degree, 31 minute, but it's retrograde, so it's kind of slow.
Yeah.
So we'll feel that as soon as Mercury goes back into Scorpio, but the exact aspect is this moment.
Yeah. I mean, it feels to me like this is going to be the most challenging Mercury retrograde we've had this year, because where it started, its retrograde was in Sagittarius, and that's its place of exile. So of all the fire signs, this is the one where it has the most difficulty, and to be retrograde there, I think we're feeling it now. I mean, we're recording this on the 8th, and Uranus has literally just moved back to Taurus as we speak. So we've got those two things going on. Like Mercury at the moment, as we're recording, is still traveling back through Sagittarius, but then he moves into Scorpio, that deeper, darker, watery place. And Mercury is a planet of earth and air. He likes to deal with our thoughts and then grounding it into practical actions. And then in Scorpio, it's a place of water, fixed water as well. And Mercury, who likes to be doing things, either in Gemini or Virgo, is doing something. We either see practical, earthy things coming out, or these thoughts and ideas just really flowing. And I think in Scorpio, Mercury might feel a little bit stuck there. And then suddenly this Uranus, this disruptor and awakener that shakes everything up. And with the outer planets, when they retrograde or forward, we don't usually feel that. But when they move and ingress into a sign or return back to a sign, that's often the moments when we feel it. And it did move like a week or more ago. But I think this is the first significant aspect. And of course, an opposition is a significant point of tension as well. So we've got this tension between this Mercury that's a little bit stuck in the water, not quite sure how to find its way to communicate. And then Uranus in Taurus, we've had that for the last 7 years or so, and it has disrupted everything about how, like our food systems and things like that. Farmers, we saw a lot of that. And whenever there were storms, there was a lot of trees coming down and houses. I mean, you sent lots of pictures of people around you with houses, and you had that terrible storm as well. And all these earthy things being disrupted. And that's really what Uranus is doing. And now that it's returned there, it's going to be the last time, I think for about 77 years, that Uranus is going to be there. So for most of us, it's our lifetime. This is the last tidying up of whatever Uranus is doing for us in that Taurus place in our charts. So Mercury is really giving voice to that, helping us find our ideas and our thoughts and helping us give expression to it. But Mercury's just struggling with that. So we ourselves may struggle as well with that, like releasing those words, those thoughts and ideas that may be trapped in our subconscious. Sometimes Scorpio isn't a place that's always easy to access ideas. They can be darker. They can be thoughts that we aren't always comfortable with. But if we can integrate them, we become a better whole person. We were just talking before we started that Adam's done a great Venus. Adam Ellenbass, our teacher at Nightlight, has done a great episode on Venus and Pluto and about how his daughter reflected something back to him of a behavior of his that she'd started copying, and he didn't like seeing it in her. But he was even more wounded when she held that mirror up. But his wife then reflected back, but how lovely that you could both have that conversation. And that's really that point of Scorpio, is that integration, that alchemy, that, okay, yeah, that there is that dark side that we don't necessarily like about ourselves, but are we willing to work on it? Are we willing to say, this is part of me and I'm going to acknowledge it and work on it? And like Mercury, giving voice to it, sharing it with other people. So yeah, that's kind of what I think might be happening around that time, that Uranus is going to bring sudden thoughts and ideas to us, or ways that we can work with that, or ways that we can share ideas with others that may be from those deeper places.
I love that. And just as Mercury is, it is being incredibly burned up by the sun. It's 2 degrees away, and the sun is 2 degrees away from opposing Uranus. So all of this, the sun opposite Uranus, is going to happen in a couple of days. And then the Mercury opposite Uranus is kind of all happening at the same time within a couple of degrees. The opposition is the strongest aspect because a conjunction is not considered an aspect, because aspect means sight. So the conjunction is like the merging of energies together. But the opposition is the nature of Saturn. It is considered the strongest aspect. And so they're usually just loud, and a disruptive, loud aspect in fixed signs, regardless of where they're at. But it does feel especially loud in fixed earth and water. It's like it's a material thing that we can see reflected. And if you are Mercury, if Mercury rules your ascendant, Mercury is your time lord, if Mercury rules your moon, you might feel it in an embodied sense. The moon here is, rules Taurus by exaltation. Venus rules Taurus by domicile. They are also not in great condition being in Scorpio. They're all co-present in that Scorpio house. So it's like nothing is safe from the disruption and the burning away of what is unnecessary during this opposition between Mercury and Uranus, and then in a few days, the sun. So I kind of feel like they're happening together. The story of Inanna, of going into the underworld, the first thing that happens is she's stripped of her adornments. It's like this sense of sacrifice and this giving up in order to make this process of her rejuvenation, right? Of part of her metamorphosis, part of her alchemy of change. And this kind of feels like the moment of if you choose to hold on to the adornments, they're just going to be ripped off of you. And maybe this is more of like an emotional adornment that you have, but to me, it feels like an opportunity to really purge and edit away these thought patterns, maybe these emotionally charged thought patterns. We get the chance to burn it off, and doesn't mean that it will be easy. It's like the writing will clearly be on the wall during these couple of days with Mercury burning out, going into the sun. We have the new moon coming up too. So again, right now it's a balsamic moon. The moon is in that final purging stage before it becomes new, before it is renewed. All of it is happening together in this Uranus opposition to Mercury is kind of kicking it off. And I'll look at the new moon chart because it happens the next day. All the planets are pretty much in the same spot. We have Mercury with the sun, with the moon, and Venus is a little closer, but Venus is still, it's like 12 degrees away from all of them. This kind of triple cazimi with the sun, moon, and Mercury together, they're all opposing Uranus still. They're all a degree away from that opposition. And to me, that informs the new moon. The moon is fallen in Scorpio, and it is ruled by Mars, and Mars is out of sight because it's in an adjacent sign. And so it feels very much like you really have to kind of stand alone in this moment. It feels almost like dark night of the soul, sort of a new moon. I'm excited for it because it is such a potent moon for personal deep reflection. But if you're not practiced in deep reflection, it could come out, it could be very difficult. I'll just, I won't sugarcoat it. It could be a really difficult time for a lot of people. But it's like the thing with fixed signs is just you learn by process of fire. Sometimes you just get thrown into it and you just you just figure it out. Maybe not graceful, but it is, you definitely learn the lesson. And that's kind of what this moment feels like. It's like an incredibly vulnerable moment of time. And it is informed by that opposition to Uranus that is still happening. What are your thoughts on the new moon and the cazimi?
And at the same time as that, you've got this grand trine forming as well. Yeah. All these planets that move through Scorpio are making this grand trine with, you've got Jupiter at 25 degrees, Saturn at 25 degrees in Pisces, and then the moon is just at 28. So it's just flowing forth from that. So that grand trine happened just as the moon was doing the final balsamic part and moving into position. So it's carrying the energy of that grand trine forward, which is probably better than applying to it and bringing that watery rush of emotions in as well. So it probably helps that happened just before. And again, adding to that release, just let it all go in the water. And as we said before with the grand trines, that this can be swift. There's nothing blocking it. The water is just moving so easily around that triangular flow with no resistance. With a square or with an opposition, there's a block of that difficulty. But here there's a sympathy between all those water signs. They're all supporting and helping each other. So the energy is just in this, like an infinity sign, in this perpetual movement between the three until those planets move away. And they're still in that engagement with it. So they're bringing that energy of that trine into it as well, if it wasn't enough with the Uranus opposition.
Yeah. There's a sweetness too, the fact that Venus is in a fairly close trine to the North Node. Yeah. Venus exalts in Pisces. Pisces can see its ruler Jupiter over there in Cancer. It's 10 degrees away, but I do like that kind of very sweet silver lining of community support, with that Jupiterian North Node. I feel like it won't be all darkness, definitely, but momentum and speed is what happens when you have all of that activity with water, especially these bigger timekeepers of Jupiter, Saturn, and the Sun. Having that day set team be in this whole month, really, it's like this acceleration and the speed and the swiftness of water things. That the new moon is like, okay, well, it's already been happening. This is kind of the midway point of this trine. And the next day, the sun will exactly trine Neptune as it directly opposes Uranus. Again, it's just going to be like the unfolding of this one really big watery chapter in our collective lives, But this new moon moment is like this moment of when you feel like you're drowning in all of this momentum of water, when you have that moment of kind of sinking down. Is it like Lord of the Rings where like Frodo is like descending down into the water to search for the ring because it fell off? There's this momentary peace, but he's completely submerged and he's all by himself. And it's like that moment of like, what are you going to do? How are you going to change and let go of things and remove the wet clothes that are weighing you down so that you can remove those adornments and pivot easier in this momentum of water? The new moon is that moment with that Mercury cazimi. Mercury will cazimi in Capricorn next in January. So, whenever Mercury cazimis come around, I find it's a good time to just kind of sit and receive the message. What is that message? And I don't think it'll be an easy message for everyone, but it's a very authentic, true, honest, deep, personal message that we will all have access to receive if we choose to sit in that stillness.
Yeah, with Uranus signifying those sudden insights as well, there's even more it being so significant. And that cazimi happens like about 2.5 hours after the new moon.
Yeah.
So it's really so close together.
Yeah.
I've got the decan as well, is the crow as the guardian of thresholds and transitions. That's what Austin Coppock calls it. The way that crow and the crows act as a family, don't they? They mourn their dead and they'll speak to us and follow us. When I was running, crows used to follow me from lamppost to lamppost and just accompany me on my way and see me safely home. They're so intelligent as well. And Kira Reiber calls this decan nostalgia. So again, that's something else. And it makes me think of, like with photos, like sometimes you have those boxes of photos that you store away, but then you choose 1 or 2 that you keep out that are very special. And, which memories, when we're doing all this releasing, what do we need to hold on to as well? That nostalgia from the past as well, what's important for us to hold on to. And to make those decisions wisely as well. And then the Wild Way is all about transformation. It's the beautiful card of that cormorant bird that's just emerging from the sea and has the rays of the sun shining down, just blessing it, even though it's had a bad day fishing, it hasn't found anything, but it reminds it it's got another day again. It can start afresh tomorrow. So even if your efforts weren't successful today, you can restart. And if you bring that mindset to what you're doing, if one thing doesn't work, well, then you've got new information you can turn around, and you know that that doesn't work, you can start again. So do you regard this as failure and give up? Or do you say, well, I've got all that information that I've gathered now. I know not to fish there. I can use that information very wisely. So it's very much about the mindset that we bring. So that's really nice. And the tarot is the Seven of Cups as well. You're probably better informed than I am to speak of it. But it is, again, all about those choices, isn't it, that card?
Yeah, the image is a person, you see them from behind, and on two shelves, there's 7 cups, and they each have something different in it. There's like a dragon in one, there's coins, there's, you can really put anything in those 7 cups. And I've given this instruction to clients before, when that decan or the card comes up in a reading, is, reenact that card, like find 7 glasses that sit in front of you, and for a period of a week, 10 days, what are you putting into that? And a lot of times it's like writing just any sort of dream, any sort of desire, whether it's a desire to let go of something. I'm tired of having this conversation with my spouse. I want to not be bored at the gym, whatever it is, like just write it down, put it in there, write it down, put it in there, write it down, put it in there, and just fill the cups and have the cups be very beautiful, because it is a very beautiful card. And put bigger dreams and more mundane dreams. And you just fill up these 7 chalices with what you imagine. And then you can dump them out, and you can go through them, and you can write them all down. You can only choose one and burn the rest and just see what remains. I mean, it's a practice of practicing the flow of what you're imagining the containers to hold, because we have limited bandwidth, we have limited containers, but our desires are limitless. So it's like, how do we give it a container? And that includes kind of the things that we're willing to let go of in order to make space for. And to me, that's a new moon story, especially a new moon in Scorpio, is actually practicing like real forgiveness of self or others, circumstances or choices, whatever it is, so that you can then open up that space for new things. A Scorpio moon does kind of feel like that composting, rich, loamy moment of the gardening cycle. And you have to let things just fall away and fall into their original organic material, so that new seeds can have the best experience from the nutrients to grow something completely. And that is this new moon. I'm going to open up this while the moon has changed. It'll have been into Sagittarius. It's actually conjoined Mars during the Sun opposite Uranus trine Neptune. So we've got that going on. We got a little sparky fire with the moon and Mars in Sagittarius. It's out of sight of Jupiter, which rules Sagittarius. So maybe they won't get into too much trouble there. But Sun opposite Uranus perfects here. And then within hours, the Sun will leave Scorpio and go into Sagittarius. So I just put this one chart with the Sun opposite Uranus together with the Sun and Sag, because it's not much of will change once the Sun goes into Sag from this chart here. Mm-hmm. Talked a lot already about Sun opposite Uranus, but what do you think of it with it also simultaneously trining Neptune? I mean, within 2 minutes.
I mean, I love how these outers are connecting. And what's that signifying for us? I do think it brings us into special times, like times when there's greater things happening beneath the surface than we're actually aware of when we watch the news cycle or the mundane. But also maybe for us personally as well, that these planets, when they impact our chart, and like this Sun-Uranus opposition just gives us a chance to see a little hint of that, to catch a little glimpse, maybe watch what's going on in the news cycle that day, because the Sun illuminates it, lights up, it reveals that purpose. The Sun signifies our purpose and also our spirit. Like, what does your spirit want? And Uranus here is revealing like that call to freedom, that liberation sense of, I heard Osteocopic talking on their forecast, and he was saying, if you didn't have to answer to anybody, if you had no restrictions, who are you? And so few of us actually really know, because we do have all these restrictions. We've grown up in society and been taught how to behave and how to have manners and everything else. But who are we? Like those books about the wild women that ran with the wolves or something. You know, who are we when all that's stripped back? And it's almost like this axis of Taurus and Scorpio. And I think of Taurus is so embodied, everything's brought down into the body and felt through the senses. It's touch and what you smell and what you feel and how you bring it all into your body. And then Scorpio is about releasing and alchemizing things, mixing it with others or with other matter or composting it, releasing it. So across this axis, it's like, oh, yeah, it's like this real chance to get a glimpse of maybe who am I? All of that going on. And then Neptune's just bringing it to this whole other level of dream significations. I mean, I love Neptune. I know a lot of astrologers see it as malefic. Maybe it is. I went to a particular Empress Atlantis did a seminar just on Neptune, and I've got problems with my ears and hearing and everything. And she did say that's actually a Neptunian signification. And when I looked at the timing of when it happened, I did have a Neptune transit that was impacting my moon at the time. And it was like, so that can kind of explain and contain it. So maybe it is, but then it's brought me other gifts that maybe if I wasn't at home when I was, that I wouldn't have had the time and the energy for the astrology studies. So it wouldn't have changed the line of my life. So I still don't see it as a malefic event.
I kind of view all of the outers as like indifferent uncles that you're related to, that you might see them once or twice a year and they don't really care about you being kind of a younger niece running around at a Christmas party. Like their business is way too serious for you. That's how the outers feel. And you might have like the wild and crazy Uranus uncle that will just like pick you up when you don't expect it. And Pluto will just like, you know, stare at you across the room and know your secrets without you telling him. And Neptune is like this elusive uncle that you really want to like know, like, what does he do for a living? And he just like vanishes into thin air. You know, it's like they seem indifferent. They seem amoral. They don't seem to kind of operate like the rest of the planets do. They're still engaged though. They're still part of our celestial family trees. I don't put malefic or benefic to either of them because I think that they're outside of that. I think we can experience it in a benefic or a malefic way. If you ask someone that is into astrology or an astrologer, like, do you think Neptune's malefic or benefic? It really is just conditional on their own experience of their own, of how they've experienced Neptune. I wanted to back up, and you had mentioned like the idea of Sun opposite Uranus is like, who were we, you know, when you have no boundaries. And years ago, talking with my mom about faith, you know, she is of the Christian faith, and she can mention something about, well, you know, if I didn't have faith, you know, what would stop me from going around and stealing purses? And I just busted out laughing. It's like, that's what you would do? Like, if you weren't a Christian and you had no morality, like you would just steal. Like, it was very precious. Like, that's kind of the worst thing that she could imagine, is that you would go and like steal someone's purse and you can like snoop and see what they had in it or take their money or whatever. It just was like a really precious revelation of like, you know, who she is at her core is really kind of cute. Like, it's like that's the worst. Like, that's her true self. Is like, do you secretly want to steal other people's purses? Where did that come from? But I know what you mean. It's like this is who I am without observation of anyone else. Like Schrodinger's cat, you know, it changes form when it's observed. And I think that without being observed, like, what are we when we are not observed? To me, that is that liberation of Uranus opposite the sun. But I wonder about, you know, sun being kind of a power source. I wonder about what is it when the sun opposes Uranus? Like, is there going to be like power struggle on this, like leading up to this day? You know, we think of the realm of the moon and fortune as Taurus because it's exalted there. And then with Scorpio, it's kind of like information is how I look at it. All the fixed signs have this, the fixedness of it is like this control of. Taurus is like control of possessions. Like, that's my purse, that's my jacket, that's my food, whatever it is. And Leo is kind of like a control or an order of like power. Like, I'm royal, I'm a celebrity, I'm in politics, whatever it is. And Aquarius it's like a power of channeling of connections and that, like being that water bearer. But with Scorpio, it feels like information. It's the details. It's the professional snoop. It's the detective. It's what it controls the information. If you have any Scorpio placements or have friends that have Scorpio placements, they like to have the information. They're great vaults. If you if you specifically say this is off the record, they will contain and control that information. They're not loose-lipped like maybe our Sagittarian buddies are, but they do really hold information. And so I wonder about the power of information with that Sun in Scorpio opposing that Uranus in Taurus, which is to me kind of like the mundane fortune of the people. And I wonder if it's going to be that. We think of information as like air signs and Mercury, yes, but within this specific aspect, I just wonder if that day there will be some sort of tipping point of the people demanding information. And there's plenty of things that we're not happy about just globally, and with refugees and migration of people, with war and hunger and politics. Like there's plenty of stuff to choose from. It's not like a revolutionary forecast to cast out, but I wonder if this will be the final day of that tipping point where there will be kind of a demand of revelation. What that Uranus opposing that fixed Sun at the anaretic degree brought up is that anaretic degree can be just intense on its own before the planet moves into the next sign. In Uranus's case, it's just moved back into that. So it's kind of backed into this degree of crisis. But the Sun is about to leave it. And again, it'll move into Sag in a couple of hours. So that's kind of what I'm wrestling with. It's the trying to set Neptune, though. I'm like, how does that play into it? Is it just going to be that flow of the information?
Yeah, and we shouldn't forget the Sun as well being solar figures, the possibility of solar figures being disrupted in some way, their secrets being revealed in the way that you was taking that idea further. You start thinking about things like the Epstein files and things like that. But the way, I've likened that to like the Pluto cycle because it's about power, but Uranus as well being that awakener and revealer and disruptor is saying, well, up with this we will not put. It's kind of like...
Yeah.
You want to keep this secret, but now I'm going to crack it right open. It's kind of that energy, and that could bring the downfall of many figures. So we're led to believe. So that could well be a signature. That public, the availability of that information to the public, but also the impact of that on those figures, those solar figures, those leaders.
Well, and just the next day, the Sun will have moved into Sag, kind of breaking a little bit of that tension. But then Mercury and Saturn are going to be trining each other. So again, kind of repeating whatever, or just adding nuance to whatever that story is. I think that Mercury Cazimi at the new moon, and then Sun opposite Uranus, then moving away, and then Mercury at this point, trining Saturn, also trining Neptune. It's been trining Neptune since it got back into Scorpio. It all feels like nuance or different variations of this water story. And again, the speed and the momentum and the emotional charge of all of this water, I think, will inform all of it. I don't think it'll be separate stories, I guess is my point. I feel like it'll just be new ways to view this larger thematic story that is happening and really being accelerated.
And just seeing that, like the Sun coming closer to Mars there, because that'll be the close of their cycle as well. There's a falling away of the Mars significations as the Sun gets closer, and Mars now already under the beams, but start to become combust as the Sun moves closer. And I can never forget, Janessa has an idea, our colleague Janessa in Ask, for Sagittarius versus the Sun moving through Sagittarius and then into Capricorn, because Sagittarius is like the signifier of Dionysus and the party place. And if you liken it to the seasons as well, it's like the seasons, people are Christmas shopping and you've got Thanksgiving and everything around this time. It's kind of a party time and a socializing time.
Yeah.
And people are spending a lot of money, and maybe money that they don't have, which is very difficult. And she calls it, I don't want to say it because I think sometimes YouTube can ban, but the F around and find out transition as the Sun moves from Sagittarius, and especially with an exalted Jupiter in Cancer. Sometimes when a planet is exalted, we see the excess of that and the shadow side of that excess. So as the Sun moves through Sagittarius, we may see the real excess of that overspending money that you don't have. So do watch for that as well, while, especially with Mars present there as well.
I think with Jupiter being retrograde, I think it will temper some of that. I think because it won't be just, I'm appreciative that it's retrograde, where there may be a little slowing down or thinking of, I've got this bill I need to pay, maybe I won't go all out. I think it might temper some of the Sagittarius season, but again, it's still exalted. There's still a flow. There's still a flow with right here, Mercury and Venus, which are going to conjoin on Tuesday, the 24th, but then Jupiter is still trining Neptune and Saturn. And then I think that Mars will cazimi the sun with Mercury in Capricorn, right? It'll be exalted Mars. It's going to happen over a period of like maybe 2 days. It's like the sun, moon, Mercury, and Mars are all going to be together in Capricorn. Once it moves into Sagittarius, it does begin to kind of burn up that Mars, which rules the Scorpio planet. So I think it might change the patina a little bit of the Mercury Venus there that will conjoin in Scorpio. In fact, I'll just go ahead and put this here because this is our last transit to talk about for the week. And what are your thoughts just on Mercury Venus together in Scorpio here?
Yeah, I mean, that's usually nice. I mean, Venus significations are nice and pleasure seeking. And then Mercury's bringing words to that sort of. Mm-hmm. So it makes me think of like expressing love through song or expressing it in a movie or something, like sitting down and watching your favorite movies, that kind of thing. But yeah, we've got a retrograde Mercury and Mars is averse and things are not as pretty as they might look. It's like, yeah, there's a few things to be dealt with, and we're in that last decan where it is all about those transitions that we've talked about, those significations, that nostalgia. So yeah, you might immerse yourself in that nostalgia for a little while, but then you might find that you have to come back out of it to the real world. Yeah. That's kind of the sense I get with Mars. I mean, yeah, it's kind of moving away. No, they're still in that combustion, isn't it there? So yeah, there's some moving faster towards it. So yeah, ruler Mars is in a worse position now that the sun's moved into Sagittarius. Mm-hmm. So it's not able to look after them so well, and it is averse anyway. So it wasn't able to help very much. And then we've got the moon in a sextile, but the moon is fallen. So that's not helping either. Bringing it into our bodies, the moon is the mediatrix that brings those messages through, and the moon's then applying to Pluto. It's sextiling Saturn, but it's just separating from Saturn. So yeah, there's a lot going on at the same time, but Jupiter's moved back off that 25. So just separating slightly out of that trine there.
It's opposing the moon.
Yeah.
When Venus moved into Scorpio, I reread Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. So it's like a zombie book, but it's sort of Pride and Prejudice. And it was it's such a funny book, but it also kind of put me into that Pride and Prejudice world, that Jane Austen world. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm rereading just Pride and Prejudice, which just feels kind of Venus and Scorpio. And so I've been kind of going through that. I'm like, maybe I'll read Sense and Sensibilities, or, do we just go through while Venus is in this kind of forlorn place of Scorpio? That's kind of because I'm in that world and that kind of dreamy world. When I look at the Venus and Mercury together here in Scorpio, I'm like, that's, to me, that just kind of like to complete some sort of canon of Jane Austen by that point in the next 2 weeks, just devour as much as I can. And then, what comes of that. I like the connection here in Scorpio. Yeah, just as a fan of Venus not being in the place of her expectation is kind of how I'm looking at it. She's not at home here, so she doesn't have to participate in the formality that she's expected to. Formality and is kind of a Venus signification. Gabe, who is an astrologer in New Jersey, he and I did a video on the terms or the bounds. And I always kind of operated with the bounds being Saturnian, but he argued that they were more Venusian. When something is in the bounds of another planet, they're expected to follow the etiquette of that planet. And that is a Venusian thing. They're not really hard rules, that there's judgment if you kind of don't follow the etiquette that the term Lord provides. And I like that alternative perspective. I think he got it from one of the Roberts. I don't think it was just his idea, but the way that he expressed it was really kind of hit a lot more than just being Saturnian. But when Venus here, Venus is in her own decan, but I think she's in Saturn's bound at that point. I can't read the chart. It's pretty small on my screen.
Yeah, it looks like. And it makes me think as well of like the Jane Austen and the world of Emma's and everything, about how you can have friends, but that etiquette still applied. That like when a friend stepped above her station and set her eyes on somebody of the wrong class, how shocking horror that was. Mm-hmm. They also be friends. But no, you can't dream of marrying a man above your station still. That boundary was still so firm, even though they were friends. And it just makes me think of that. You're talking about that etiquette. It's like, yeah, we can break the etiquette. We can be friends. But no, you can't look at men that...
Not beyond that. Yeah.
I will choose you a suitable man.
And that wraps us up for the week here to wrap up. So if you're listening to this on Wednesday, the 19th, Mercury is opposing Uranus. And then tomorrow, Mercury Cazimi in Scorpio with the new moon in Scorpio. And they will still be opposing Uranus within a degree. On Friday, the sun will oppose Uranus and trine Neptune. And then the sun will move into Sagittarius. Then on Saturday, Mercury retrograde in Scorpio will trine Saturn retrograde in Pisces. And then Tuesday, Mercury will conjoin Venus in Scorpio. And that is the week. Do you have any final words for this week?
Yeah, really, sort of when we're talking about Mercury, Venus, Mars, they're all like what we call personal planets that do affect our lives. And then what we said about the outers, they're more generational and they affect what's going on in the outer world. But certainly with so much Mercury and Mercury Venus or Mercury Mars or the combination of things that are happening, those things are happening in our lives and changing things in our lives as well. So if it's affecting us, we're likely to see some changes happening.
Yeah.
So enjoy it, everybody. Look out for those deep insights that they're worth listening. When somebody holds a mirror up and reflects something back to you, do take it on and just reflect. You don't have to respond straight away, but just take it in, take a minute.
Yeah, and share with us if you do, especially for Kazimis. Share with us, what your Kazimi was like. Any secrets that you want to reveal of your own self. It is a Kazimi in Scorpio, so I respect the secrecy. But sometimes it's, bringing your secrets out into the daylight kind of helps you have a new perspective on them if shared with people that you feel safe with. And if you feel safe here to comment on our Substack or YouTube, then we're happy to hear what you have to share. And with that, we will close it off. Thank you, Sonia. I'll see you maybe in December.
Yeah, thank you.